Democrats pushing these spending and tax plans. Of course, they've got to talk about raising the debt ceiling, removing the filibuster, and really taking on the most successful companies in the United States. Joining me now, Republican Congressman Greg Steube of Florida. Congressman, I want to start with the spending bill. Much being made about the size of this thing, but I think personally the greater risk is the remaking of America into the image of one of these European welfare states that punishes marriage. So why are so many of these tax benefits geared toward penalizing people getting married, where we know that's the epicenter of success in our country?
Yeah, it's always questioning why the Democrats do the things that they do, but they're attacking the very value of marriage in our country. I actually have a bill that would do away with the current marriage penalty altogether to encourage couples to get married, especially those couples that are higher earners that are looking at this from a financial perspective, that when they get married, they're going to be penalized financially for getting married. So they want to increase that more than it already is now, which is actually going to have a huge disparaging impact on marriage in our country. And what's interesting is there's an exception. If you have a Tesla or an electric vehicle, they're not going to have that on you. So it just shows you what their real motives are behind this. The amount of spending, the amount of tax increases, they want to completely undo what the Republican legislature in Congress did with the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, which you saw the economic numbers before COVID were the highest economic numbers we've had in the history of our country. And it's because of what Republicans did in cutting taxes, not increasing taxes.
Yeah, by the way, I call that real shared prosperity. Now, today, 12 former top U.S. national security officials sent a letter to Congress, both the Senate and the House, urging them to put a pause on these antitrust bills. They pointed out how much it would help China. We just heard Hillary Vaughn talk about how these higher taxes make China and other countries more competitive. Now, if we break up or really truly attack these large corporations, they can't compete on the global stage, can they?
Well, my approach to this has been all along, why do they have liability protection under Section 230? There's no other big businesses in our country that are immune from liability and from lawsuits, especially if they're violating your First Amendment rights. So in my opinion, that's the real way to attack this problem, is to take away their liability protection. Why should they be protected when they're violating your First Amendment rights? You would see their behavior change very drastically, and they wouldn't be able to get to the sizes that they have been over the past history.
Right. And I agree with that completely. I just worry about this sort of antitrust stuff and when the world is increasingly one global economy. You're in the House Foreign Affairs Committee. And so we've got Secretary Blinken, who he couldn't explain how he get Americans who are left behind, enemy lines out. And at the same time, reports America, we've given the Taliban $64 million in emergency funding. Obviously, I don't know if this is part of carrot and stick or just our humanitarian nature. But what do we do about those Americans who are still in Afghanistan? And I feel like the news cycle is coming at such a fast pace, more and more people might be forgetting about them.
Well, not only the news cycle, but the mainstream media wants to ignore what's happening over there because the majority of Americans don't think that we should be abandoning our citizens behind enemy lines that are now being held hostage by the Taliban. He refused to tell us how many there was. They say hundreds, but the original briefings that we got said there were between 10 and 15,000 Americans in Afghanistan, and they've only gotten out between 4,500 and 5,500. Well, simple math will tell you there's got to be more than hundreds that are trapped behind enemy lines. They won't tell you how many exactly, yet they'll tell you they know who they are because they've emailed them and they've called them, but they won't tell Congress who they are. They can't even identify who they attacked in a drone attack. You saw Blinken completely refuse to answer that question. It's just beyond the pale that our administration is doing these type of things and then refusing to not give answers to Congress when we demand them.
Yeah, the answer on that drone attack might be so embarrassing. He'll accept the L as he took it. And of course, we know one American stuck in Afghanistan is one too many. Congressman Steube, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.